Oh, that's actually warm, because I just took it out of it. Yeah, it is. Just a bit warm. Hello, and welcome to Anatomy of a Blu-ray. In this video, we are going to be looking at Godzilla 1984, aka The Return of Godzilla. This is the North American release of the film, which is interesting, because it even says on the top, for the first time in North America, the uncut and uncensored original epic. In other words, it's not the American version, which I find quite interesting. It's just the Japanese original cut. Mostly because this being a direct sequel to the original film, actually had Raymond Burr reprise his role, and kind of be that extra narrating character, which is probably like an extra, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes of footage that they would have had to add. I don't know, it's not on here, and I never watched the original with Raymond Burr. I've only seen the original as a Japanese film. So, yeah. So I figured, look, I've just watched this film. I figured it's a good contrast, at least given this is my second video in this series, to break it down in contrast to the Anatomy of a Murder Criterion / 4K I did in the previous video. So, first of all, packaging-wise, what do you get packaging? I don't really know order-wise what I'm going to be talking about, but I'll stick with packaging, then I'll go into audio, visual, and special features in the overall product. So yeah, there'll be time codes down below. So packaging-wise, it's a very standard, slim American case Blu-ray, kind of slim and easily breakable. Not my favorite type, but at the same time, a decent size, I guess. Obviously, like in terms of artwork, you get your main poster there, which is basically what most of the American Blu-rays did for Godzilla. You get on the spine there some details where it actually does say it's done by Kraken Releasing. They've done a few Godzilla films, your disc art as well, and the back of the Blu-ray. A decent amount. You got some images, you've got some details about the film, and then you've got some extra details there. This is obviously a Region A encoding version. It's only got Godzilla in it. It's fine. In terms of a casing, it's perfectly fine. I bought it instead of getting the DVD because I figured it'll look at least a bit better than the DVD. And well, I'll get to that in a second, I guess. But yeah, in terms of what it suggests specs-wise, outside of it being a Region A Blu-ray, it's obviously 1080p. It's full screen, so 16:9. It has English and Japanese DTS HD Master Audio 5.1 tracks. The English doesn't come with subtitles, but the Japanese does. And it's 103 minutes long, so yeah, this doesn't actually suggest, it does say it comes with extras. There's not much. So what can I talk about with the actual film? I wrote some notes down. So basically, image-wise, picture quality. What do I think of this film's picture quality? It's fine. Like, it basically looks like it's a DVD rip that's just being plastered in HD to some degree. You know, Blu-ray.com says it's a 2K Blu-ray. It's definitely not a high-definition, like, proper scan. It's not a remaster or anything, and it's a kind of film where I could look at it and be like, if this had a 4K scan, like a proper remaster, like, say, the Criterion versions of the Showa era, for example, it could look incredible. But it doesn't, unfortunately, so a lot of the blacks are very, you know, very dark. There's a few scenes in particular set at nighttime, especially later in the film, where a helicopter is saving a few people, and I could only make out the base of the helicopter and the guy jumping out of the helicopter because he happened to be in a grey colour. So, yeah, not amazing, but it depends on the scenes, depends on the kind of lighting, like, in terms of controlled lighting shots, so stuff inside buildings, it looked generally fine. Stuff that was outside during the daytime also looked pretty okay. So lighting-wise, it wasn't tremendously terrible. There weren't many shots I was like, okay, this is just a bad scan. I mean, it's not a fantastic scan, but it's okay. It is also a film that suffers from some, like, optical effects with blue screen stuff, so, and there's two side by side that really just look terrible, but it's like, I guess it doesn't matter. Like, one's like a bad blue screen shot of a foot crushing people, and the other one's like a reverse shot of like Godzilla like in the city with a bunch of people in front of him, but obviously he's like there superimposed, and it's kind of like they've basically done a flat cut in between, but that's basically how they made the film. It's not really a criticism on the Blu-ray itself. Can't really be, to be honest. There is obviously also some stock footage that they use for like missiles and stuff, which have heavy grain and damage, but outside of that, the film itself looks fine. There's not really a lot of like damage or dirt or anything. It's just heavy grain, and even there, it's usually soft, and it can variate between being digital noise and like grain noise and noise from the original DVD that it was like ported from, which is probably ported from, you know, a VHS scan as well. I don't know. It's its own thing. I will say though that in terms of, because I had the Japanese dub playing, it did have, and this is actually for both. I did jump between the English and the Japanese. It had translations on the screen. There are the occasional things where it will showcase a person, like, oh, this is the minister of this or whatever, very much like Shin Godzilla, and it'll have the person's name there in Japanese, but then it'll also have the English title on top, but the English title will at least have a border around it so you can delineate between the two. It's not like underneath it or anything, it's superimposed on top, which is kind of weird. It's not unclear as to what it says. It also doesn't really matter half the time. Like, there are times where one of the scenes, they're in a reporter, like a journalist, I don't even know what the hell you call that, you know, where they make the newspapers. And so it has the text, you know, in the universe telling you what the place is, so they superimpose text saying what this actually translates to, which is very interesting. I feel like that's a very American thing. Personally, I think it helped, because I didn't know that the place in particular that the main character worked at happened to be a gazette, because I mean, I would have figured it out because he's a journalist, but at the same time, I wouldn't have known unless they had have said, which they kind of do, but they don't really. So that's interesting. The subtitles, though, I will mention, are in yellow with black outline, which is my favorite kind of subtitle. So then we get onto audio. So I listened to the Japanese 5.1 audio with English subtitles. It sounded fine. It was mostly front-heavy towards the main front three speakers, text and people talking text. People talking was through the main speaker, but then the side two did have a lot of like sound effects, like Godzilla and explosions and stuff like that. There was only like one occasion where I heard jets fly by and I had a full surround, but for the most part, not really much in the back speakers. Nothing amazingly out there. The music was still all from the front. And yeah, so it's not an outrageously amazing soundtrack, but it is what it is. The English dub sounded, well, like most English dubs do, you know, not perfect on the lips and also not perfect on the hips. A lot of overtly dramatic, you know, people talking. So yeah, it was fine. I only looked at a few scenes, nothing amazing. I don't really watch the English dubs ever for most Japanese, for most foreign films. I don't think I really ever watch, unless it's anime, and that's only if I really want to focus on the visuals. So, you know, but yeah. So in terms of special features, you had a 3-minute long trailer, which ironically actually had the main theme for the film, which the film itself doesn't have. Which I always find to be disappointing if a Godzilla film doesn't involve the main theme, because it's like, but that's like, for me, that's what can make Godzilla feel like Godzilla, having that theme back him up, even if it's just one scene. And this film had a perfect scene for him where he collapsed, he was down for like 10 minutes, like leaning into a building and everything, and then like this radioactive lightning zaps him awake, and I'm like, that would have been the perfect time to use the fucking main theme and then have him come back. But then sometimes they use that theme more heroically, but it's like, come on, like, give him some presence with it, but they didn't, so unfortunately. It does have 3 other trailers as promotional stuff for Kraken releasing, which I watched one trailer for, which was like Ebirah, Horror of the Deep, and it looked pretty fun, I'll be honest. I did have one with like, I think, Ghidorah, no, maybe not Ghidorah. I think one was like Rodan or something, and another one. But 2 of them were Godzilla versus, and one was Ebirah, Horror of the Deep, which has Godzilla and Mothra. So, as an all, overall for this release, it's fine. I mean, most of my Godzillas for the original, for Showa and Heisei, or Heisei, and the Millennium series are all in DVD, to the point that I had to get, because my Heisei series didn't have this, which really, really bothered me, in order to have Godzilla vs. Biolante, so I had to get that as a DVD, which, not cheap. The Blu-ray is worth a few $100, and this was about $50 to get it. I think I had a, coupon or whatever for eBay, but nevertheless, it's kind of annoying that I had to do that, but I have a lot of them now. I even have the Criterions for the Showa set, which I've actually put into a whole case. I'm yet to actually grab, artwork for this yet, unfortunately. I haven't gotten around to it. Eventually, one day, I expect to. This is also broken. How is it that most of the big Blu-ray sets I get always seem to have a piece snapped off the base? Anyway, this has all my Godzilla for the Showa era, which does have a Bira Horror of the Deep, which is cool. I think I really, really like, personally, Godzilla films wise. I really like the Godzilla films where he's fighting other monsters. I always think that they're really fun, but I do like the ones where, that are purely, this is basically a horror film where either Godzilla is evil or Godzilla just hates humanity, which is basically when Godzilla's evil. But, in this case, the original Godzilla, Return of Godzilla, and I think Godzilla 2000 or something has the same thing, but that's where, he's a vengeful spirit of some kind, but, he has to fight 3 other monsters in that one, but he still has that evil presence to him. But Shin Godzilla in particular is, my favorite of them. It's just purely terrifying of a creature. So, yeah, it is what it is. But I also really love the ones where he fights other monsters, and it can be a bit goofy, sure, but I appreciate it. Dude, it's a dude in a suit fighting another dude in a suit. What's not to love? So, yeah. Overall, I think the film is fine. As a film itself, I think it's quite good. As a Godzilla film, I think it benefits from its more heavy, dark themes. I like the Soviet War stuff. I like the practical effects, a lot of great miniatures and stuff. I think Godzilla's eyes are a bit, I read one review which was comparing it to the Cookie Monster. I'm like, yeah, I kind of think it's more googly eyes. I don't think the eyes work, but I really dig the costume. So it kind of takes you out when you get a lot of the close-ups of his face, which look really nice. It's a lot of detail on that suit, as if they've, sprayed him with water, so, it gets more, light reflecting on him. Really nice. And even on a decently okay transfer, it still pops out pretty well. But, yeah, it's, I think it's a pretty good film, in terms of a lot of the Godzilla films that I've seen. Nevertheless, I guess I would, if you were wanting to get this Blu-ray, it's basically your only other option outside of getting a DVD, and I'd argue you could probably get away with a DVD if you only have DVDs for Godzilla, like I do. I've got a lot of Godzilla films on DVD, because a lot of them you can't get on Blu-ray, or you can only get them strictly from America from the same publisher, which is basically just an upscale onto Blu-ray, or just a straight transfer onto Blu-ray, which isn't great. Alternatively, they have released a lot of them in Japan. They're usually pretty expensive to get. I don't know if they're really remastered and all, so that's my only concern there, but I'm fine. I grew up with Godzilla on DVD. I love that there's a Criterion set, but outside of that, you get what you get kind of deal. So, yeah, if you want to get it, and if you're looking for it to hopefully get a better looking version, if you already have the DVD, so you can save yourself some money. It only cost me $20 to get it, so that's not bad, and it was from eBay. I think it went up the week after to $50, so I bought it at the perfect time. So, yeah, it depends on what your budget is and what it goes for online. I went for Amazon, which was convenient for me. So, it still took a few weeks to get here from, the US, but it worked out in the end. But yeah, so it's not a bad purchase. I was just happy to get it. A slight bit of a better upgrade than the DVD, a bit more clarity and stuff, but yeah, overall, it's fine. Not amazing, but still. Anyway, that's all for now. Thanks for watching. If you have a movie you'd like me to watch on my shelf and review, the special features, the transfer, anything else, then I will happily do so. Obviously, this is a lot of a shorter video because there's not really as much to say, but that gives me more of a reason to, I don't know, bring out other opinions about the film, whatever. So, yeah, nevertheless, thanks for watching. See you next time. Adios.